Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains. Welcome to Epic Realms. Today's guest had their debut book, Roll for Romance, released just recently on the 15th, and it's now completely available everywhere you get your books. Please welcome author and writer Lenora Woods to Epic Realms. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. So happy to be here.
So it's just been under a week. You just got your book out.
Yeah.
It just got released. Tell us about what this week, that just this past week, has been like for you.
Surreal. It's been the craziest thing in the world. I'm a big reader. Most authors are, and I've been to so many different book events, but to have switched places where I'm the one like sitting and talking and all of my loved ones are showing up and kind of surprising me has just been incredible. I mean, it's been the best week I think I could have asked for. It's been incredible.
Have you had a moment to let it all sink in and just realize kind of the whole scope of like, hey, I just got my first book published and released, and people like it.
It seems like they do, and that's been really incredible as well. I haven't had much of a break since the book came out. I was going on tour, visiting different friends and family, and so there's been a few like small moments like in the car or on the plane where I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm headed to my next event or something." And that those kind of small moments have got me, but I feel like after I'm back home and like resting, then it'll really hit me. So
Or then it'll be like, let's move on to the next thing.
maybe.
Let's
I
get
think I
going.
need to sleep for a week and then and then I'll be ready and then I'll be energized and I'll do it all over again.
What has the response been from your point of view so far? Like, what have you seen? What are
Um,
you like? Oh, this is the response I've been getting. People are super excited. You've chatted with some people, I'm guessing, in person. What
mhm.
have those responses been like?
It's been amazing. I mean, there were some friends I knew would come to my events, and then other friends I wasn't expecting who kind of surprised me. And it was wonderful to see them. And then even just readers online through like Instagram. Like I've had a few people reach out over email or Instagram and just be like, "Oh, my partner plays D&D and I'm trying your book for the first time," or "I've played D&D forever and I really like romance and this is a good time." So it's been really positive and just very welcoming. So I'm really grateful to everyone who's given the book a chance. And I think my loved ones too have just been really supportive and celebratory. So it's been so much fun.
Let's backtrack a little bit. You're obviously a fan of geeky things, whether we're talking, and we're going to talk about it, D&D and Renaissance festivals and video games and all that kind of stuff. How far back in your life was it when you until you realized like, hey, I'm a geek and I like geeky things?
I had a friend ask me that recently, like, how did you get into fantasy? And I had to sit and think about it. And I was like, I don't remember when I wasn't
Yeah.
into fantasy. Like, I don't remember a time when it wasn't like my favorite thing. I'm visiting my family right now in Texas before my Texas event tomorrow. And I was looking at my childhood bedroom. I've got a collection of little fairy statues that you could get at like Hot Topic or those like strange little stores in the mall.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and I started collecting those like when I was like little and built little fairy houses with my grandma. I always loved dragons and just like Percy Jackson and getting into all those things. So I think it's just always kind of been who I am. And I've just gotten more into it as the years have gone by. So
Did a lot of that stuff shape you wanting to write?
yeah, I would say so. I think storytelling in general has always been like huge for me. I was always big into books. I played a lot of video games. I love video game storytelling is probably the only reason I play. I'm pretty bad at them otherwise. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like them as a storytelling medium. Um so yeah, all of the games and media that I like consumed was hugely influential. For me wanting to write and kind of diving into it. And a lot of my writing started in fan fiction and role playing spaces anyway before I even wrote a book. So
What is that like going into the fan fiction realm? Because I've heard you're not the first author who said they started in fan fiction, and that's
Mhm.
kind of a telling thing. What kind of was your intro? What was your first story for fan fiction that you wanted to write or that you tried writing?
Oh my goodness, I no one's asked me that question yet. It was Mass Effect. Actually, Mass Effect was the first fanfic I ever wrote. I'm not like a revisionist fanfic writer. Like I usually like some people like to be like, what if this happened, or what if that happened? I like more to just explore more of what I already played, and I think I finished the third one, and I'm sure a lot of people had a lot of feelings after finishing that wonderful trilogy, and I was like, I just want to play in this world more. And yeah, so my book is like romance and fantasy, but that sci-fi game, like just the storytelling of Mass Effect probably changed me like forever. So I that was the first one that really I felt encouraged, like I just want to stay in this world for a little while longer.
Well, while there's a lot of different genres that are out there, right, there's still a base in telling a story and getting a message across. So
Hmm.
even though your new book is romance, it's contemporary, it's also D&D, and it's kind of fantasy.
Hmm.
Mass Effect is sci-fi fantasy, but it still is telling a story. And
For
so
sure.
what kind of stories for that kind of fanfic was it? Was it like just very like action, that good guy gets bad guy goes after, things, or what kind of stories were we getting?
It's probably not surprising at all. It was a romance. All
Okay.
of my fan fictions
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
It was. I'm really outing myself here, but I don't mind. It was. It was Joker and Shepherd was my first fanfic,
Okay.
actually. So maybe that's not something that's really in the game. But then I wrote like Garrus and Shepherd, and then I went on and wrote like Dragon Age fanfics of like the romances. It was kind of like reimagining scenes that were in the game, but maybe I just wanted to last a little bit longer. So I think yeah, romance has always been, even though storytelling is kind of goes across genres in that way for sure. I think my heart has always been in romance, and starting in like doing those little scenes and these, like I used to do very short fanfics. I don't
Yeah.
have like novel length ones out there, just scenes. And yeah, so that's kind of where maybe the romance bug started for me.
Okay. Well, it's not like Mass Effect and those games don't have romance in them, right?
I wouldn't have played them otherwise.
Right.
Actually, my partner is always, if any of my friends want me to play a game, they have to be like, "Don't worry, Lenora, it has romance," and then I'll play it. So yeah.
What do you think? Which game? Because you played a handful of games, whether it's Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age, Mass Effect. What are some of your favorite romance stories in video games?
I mean, Baldur's Gate pretty much rushed to the top of my list when I played it. I like to tell people that if you like Baldur's Gate, but maybe you don't read a lot, you might like my book because I think it's got a good mix of that. But Baldur's Gate was just, I think, the way that they are able to tackle like different facets of these characters, that you as the player can like either lead your romance on a path to darkness or redemption or maybe somewhere in the middle. I think it's just the most adaptable and kind of immersive romance experience I've ever had. And sometimes when you play romance in a video game, like it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to watch this like 3D model. Like it's a little awkward sometimes, but I think Baldur's Gate really nailed it. Like I just thought that the way that they explored like all of the nuance of like a different kind of character you can be and the different kind of characters you can romance, I thought was just masterful. But Mass Effect's up there, Dragon Age is definitely up there. They were some of my very first ones. Yeah, I've just started as a reward for finishing like this tour and stuff. I'm gonna play Claire Obscure next, and I don't know anything about that romance, but I've
Oh,
heard that's a very good
heard
game.
good. I've
So
seen I've seen people play it. I've seen people play it. Being the fact
mhm.
that we're on Twitch from time to time, I know a few people that have played and run through it.
I'm very excited. It's like a reward for me for sure to play it.
You mentioned when you're doing D&D that like your friends are like, "Don't worry, we'll have some romance and stuff in there." What is like your intro into the world of D&D?
Yeah, so I actually the first game I ever played of D&D was with other booksellers at the bookstore I used to work at. I used to work at Book People in Austin. It's I think it's Texas's largest indie, and they were like, "Hey, we're getting together a group. We're going to play D&D." And I was like, "Yes, I've always wanted to play this game." But a lot of D&D, like the hardest part of playing D&D is, I'm sure you know, but any viewers who maybe haven't dipped in before, is finding people to play with you and
Right.
scheduling time to play it. So when I finally had that opportunity, I jumped on it and played with them for a while, but ended up splitting up into a smaller group and started playing with those friends. And I dedicated to the book to them. We still play to this day. We've played for like 10 years
Wow.
now. So, but it all started there. I met them at Book People.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Have you branched out into other games, other gaming systems? Do you want to?
I At this point I don't, and I think it's only because I'm so immersed in D&D at this point. I'm like, I don't want to learn new rules. I it's a little lazy on my part, but I feel like I just know how D&D goes. I've been told that like Pathfinder's really fun because there's a lot more it's more dynamic, I guess, and how you can build your character. Like you can be a little like customize a little bit more. I've been curious about Vampire the Masquerade, but I don't know if I'm serious enough for I'm just a very giggly player.
Yeah.
But I like vampires, so I've been very curious about it, but I haven't really yeah, I haven't really branched out further than D&D, but I'm curious to hear what people think of like Daggerheart is like the new system and stuff. So, yeah, I never say never, but
Not
I
gonna do a
haven't
Mass Effect RPG?
I
Oh,
should I had someone there was a
Dragon
friend in
Age.
college. Yes, I would love to do those. Do they have tabletop role-playing games for
I know
those?
Dragon Age does. I'm sure Mass Effect's got to.
Oh my
They've got to
gosh.
have one. I mean, they've got one for Fallout. They've got one for Dragon Age. I
Yeah,
hear
I
Baldur's
would
Gate
love
is
to.
has a role playing system. I guess.
That's isn't it just D&D though?
Yeah, it's just D and D. It's just D and D. It's
Yeah.
that's the joke. It's just D and D.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yes, exactly. Very familiar with Baldur's Gate system.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I would love to. I would have a lot of fun with that. So,
Do you prefer to play as a player, or do you want to be a GM?
do not want a GM. I am some people have asked me that like being an author and like writing the world or like writing the storyline if that's what I am more drawn to. I'm not. I like doing one shots quite a bit. Like I will sometimes do a one shot and having like a contained story I really enjoy. But long form campaign I tried to do one and I cut it quite short because I got quickly overwhelmed and I really like playing. Maybe it's just cuz it's what I've always done. But I like putting a lot of my energy into like one character and like really giving it to that character rather than having to think through the whole scope. But I think it's the combat that keeps me from GMing actually cuz I could role play all
Yeah.
day, but my players would never see combat at all if I was in charge.
Just
So
the worst of it is maybe solving a puzzle.
maybe not even that.
Maybe not even that.
Like talking to like NPCs and like kissing NPCs for like however long the campaign is. It's just political like strife and like having a lot
Yeah.
of charisma rolls is what my game would be.
Sounds great to
So
me. Sounds good to me. You'll have to do it at like go to a convention. Go to a convention like this is the Lenora Woods
yeah,
table, uh,
that would be
where
really
you run a
fun.
one shot for a bunch of people.
That would be really cool. People have asked if I was going to write like a campaign based on the book or something and I hadn't thought of it, but maybe I should. So
Maybe there's a lot of crossover there. Lot of potential for crossover in material and content
yeah,
and getting stuff out there.
yeah, maybe in that rest period that I'm daydreaming about, that's what I'll work on after after everything has calmed down.
Do you
Yeah.
think that most D&D people like Renaissance festivals?
Oh
I
yeah,
think that's a big
I think
crossover.
so. Yeah, I mean my D&D group, we go every single year. We sometimes like when a campaign ends, we will dress up as our characters for like the campaign itself,
Yeah.
but I think so. I just feel like being in D&D, you're already immersing yourself in a fantasy setting. So Renaissance fairs just give you like a platform to do that even more and to introduce mead and music and lots of other fun things as well. So I think there's huge amounts of crossover for that for sure.
What was your intro to Renaissance festivals? What was your first time going?
Yeah. It was Texas Ren Fair, which is
Huge.
it's huge. It's the biggest one in the nation. Yeah, they did that HBO documentary, which is less about the Ren Fair and more about the guy who founded it. But I went on a field trip in middle school to the Texas Ren Fair and I didn't dress up. I was a kid and it was for art class. Like our art class took us there and I was in love. Like from the second I went, I was like, this is the coolest place that's ever existed. I was totally sold on it, and I didn't really go again until college, until I found my D&D group, and I had some other friends who really enjoyed it, and now it's like I go 4 or 5 times a year, maybe. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do, during the season that it's on.
What do you think the difference was then versus now, as far as like what the draw is or isn't? Because obviously different age categories, the Renfest looks a little bit different when you go.
That's true. I really think that Ren fairs nowadays, I think people are, people are struggling, times are hard, and it's people are looking really for an escape, and they're looking for a place that like is a community space where they can really just have fun and play and just kind of enjoy. So I think Ren fairs especially have exploded since like the pandemic, and I think people are really just looking for a place to spend time with their friends and kind of escape reality for a little bit. I don't know if you go to Ren fairs, but I like to dress up a lot, and I just feel like it's something about shifting into like a different reality and like a
Yeah,
different space. Do
for
you
sure.
enjoy going to Ren fairs?
I've
Oh,
I've worked at Renaissance festivals. For our audience knows, I worked at Renaissance festivals as an entertainer for
whoa,
multiple years. I was a pirate character known as Captain Maxwell Drake, and
that's so
it's
cool.
I had the David Bowie crystal ball thing going and all of that. And eventually they brought in mermaids. When you see people in the big silicone mermaid tails,
Yeah.
I was friends. We were there when they developed those mermaid tails, and friends with those people. So
Whoa.
now they've moved since to Hawaii, and they've got a mass production, and it's
Hmm.
crazy how set up they are. So getting to see all of that, both as a new person coming in, but also
Hmm.
as a person being there, it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah. What would you, I guess, from your perspective, do you have any opinions on why it's gotten so much bigger in recent years?
I think a lot of it is perspective. I think
Hmm.
they've always been big. It's
Yeah.
just that
Hmm.
you might not see it, and they've evolved and they've changed and their entertainment has changed. But also when you're
Hmm.
a kid, you will see the bright characters and you don't necessarily know who's working there, who's not. It's just this big fantasy, really cool place with all this cool stuff. But then when you're as an
Hmm.
adult, you can see some of the nuanced things and the interactions and it's like watching a Disney movie. When you're an adult, you can see some of the little innuendos that are there that you didn't see as a child. So
Yeah, absolutely.
what is your theory? Because you've said you've got closets full of costumes. What is your theory for putting together a costume? What is some of the things you kind of need to have?
I I have pieces that I've bought hoping I'd reuse them, but I always want a new costume every time like it comes up. I just get this like, oh, I've got to build something new. I think for me, what I decide to do, or dress up as sometimes is influenced by my D&D campaigns. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, well, I'm playing a fighter character, so I learned how to make like chainmail and do like I did like a little
Yeah,
pauldron type thing. Or I'll be really drawn to like a wizarding kind of character and want to develop something on that. Some of my friends have talked about like maybe we should be like a goblin troop at some point or like have like a little swampy theme is what one of my best friends is talking about doing. And so I think having a group theme can be sometimes really fun, but I think it's really led by like what I'm really into at the time. And so like my fighter character or like my Baldur's Gate character, I wonder if I could add like a sign of the absolute or something, just like things like that. And so adding in those details is really fun for me. But I love going to the Ren Fair and purchasing like different things, like different like leather like kits and things like that. I guess the only constant I have is I'm always an elf. I always put on the ears. I really enjoy doing that. So I'm always an elf character no
an
matter
elf at
what.
heart.
Yes.
So one of the main reasons I wanted to ask some of that is because building an outfit, you're telling a story, you're telling a character, you're developing like, why does this character have this little book? What's in the book? All of that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. When you're playing D&D, you get to understand nuances of things like that. How much of stuff, whether it's from Renfest, playing D&D, playing video games, how much of that helps to tell your story and develop a character in your stories?
Yeah, I that's such an interesting question. I think Being for me, I guess with Ren Fair, it's less. I feel like I'm like a fantasy version of myself almost. Like I will have like inspirations from my other characters, but that's more of like Lenora, but just more Lenora or
Yeah,
fan or fan forest fantasy Lenora. But I think with building characters through D&D, or I used to do a lot of online role playing and
yeah,
things like that. I think you have to spend so much time inhabiting them. Like you're not, or depending, different players and GMs do it differently. I like to use an accent because it kind of gets me out of my head a little
yeah.
bit. It makes me
Immerses
feel like
yourself.
I'm exactly, or you'll have, even if you don't like doing accents, like sometimes it's fun to adopt like different mannerisms or like patterns of speech. And so I think doing that and kind of like inhabiting that mindset, but also spending a lot of time like in D&D we do extensive like backstory documents where
Yeah,
we let our dungeon master know like this is who these are all the loved ones my character has that you can put in danger to like do stakes or tell the story. And that I think collaborative storytelling through things like D&D or like online role playing and like inhabiting one character is how I found like my footing. And like when I started writing for myself, it was something where I just spent so much time with those characters. It felt very natural to kind of start telling stories after that. I don't know, I might have got a little off topic. I don't know if
that's
I
okay.
answered your question directly,
That's
but
okay. When you're writing, because we talked about online role playing, things like I'm guessing World of Warcraft,
World of
World of
Warcraft, yep,
Warcraft
that's
role
it.
playing.
Yeah.
Whether it's that, whether you're doing fan fiction, have you learned any certain things that you're like, oh, I probably should do that more or do that less, or this one thing that I did was a bad habit that I need to get out of? Is there anything from that that you've learned from the beginning through up until releasing this book?
What a great question. I'm glad you asked because yes, there's absolutely like bad habits that I've developed. And also good things too. Like in when you're doing like role playing on World of Warcraft or in D&D, I think it's very important to have a character, and not everyone follows this rule, but the way I like to play it, I think it's really important to have a character that is approachable and outgoing and can connect with people, because if you're playing like a broody sad boy, then no one's going to interact with you. It's going to be
Right.
a very closed off character. Like no one's going to want to write with you and like make a collaborative story. So all of the characters I made were very like outgoing, or they would say hello. It was very in their personalities to like connect. And a lot of times when writing on a forum like that, like I kind of had like a script a little bit where it's like my character would always say the same thing if she was meeting someone in a tavern or if she was going on an adventure with someone. And so there were certain like word choices that I would make that while writing a novel, I was like, I can't start every scene like this. Like I can't just do this every time. Like
Right.
it's not a collaborative space. It's just me. And so I think I had to unlearn some of my writing in that way. But I also think that like idea of why I make characters like that really influenced a lot of the characters I made like while writing the book. Like the romance interest and role for romance is very outgoing. He specifically plays a bard character because he wants to easily connect with these people at the table that he's never met before. And I drew on that experience specifically from when I played a bard and when I played a bard like character in WoW. Like it was something that was very natural to me. But I think getting to write a novel after doing that, like I got to play with more, for the first time, I got to play with characters that were more introspective, or I had time where I could just write and be in their heads for a while. So a lot of learning and a little bit of unlearning as well. It was definitely an interesting transition, but I think it helped me in the long run.
What was the process to getting the book published? Did you have to do querying and submissions and go to an agent and representation? How did that all come together for you? Because from what I understood, from what I've read and listened to, is that
Mhm.
this was kind of like were doing it for you, and then you're like, oh, I've got a book.
Yeah, I did not always, I loved writing and I loved doing that, but I didn't think I was gonna write a book. Like, when I was growing up, it wasn't something I necessarily said. I think my parents always thought that I would, or they thought I'd end up there, but I think Roll at least with Roll for Romance, I feel like the book really found me, where it was kind of the story just came like, wanted to be told, and I felt like I just had to put it down.
Yeah.
And so I think the path to publication for me is I wrote it after a period of like career burnout, and it was just kind of this fun passion project that I was like, I really like this idea. I love these characters. Let me just go for it. And so yeah, I did it for me. And once I was finished, I sent it to a few friends, and I was like, is this like very indulgent? Like, what do you think? Do you enjoy it? What should I kind of do? And I had some positive feedback from my friends, and I was like, all right, let's go for it. So one of the big parts of my process, I did query, and my agent helped me find my publisher, and it worked out in that kind of traditional path. But I think one of the things that I really attribute to some of my success with that whole path was I did a mentorship program called Smooch Pit.
Okay.
It's a romance mentorship program that
Okay.
happens every year where they pair you with other traditionally published authors,
Yeah.
and they kind of help you edit the book and talk to you about like different options and different ways to start the querying process. And so if anyone listening is writing romance and wanting to apply, those applications go live, I think it's September, but they do it every year, and it's a great program. And I met a lot of my writing community through there, and I loved working with them.
And you're a mentor there now, right?
I was, yes,
You
I
were?
was last year. I won't be this year. I think it was just time constraints for me. But the mentorship experience, it was something I definitely wanted to give back to the program, and I loved mentoring. I had a wonderful mentee, and I love her book. And but yeah, I won't be there this year, but there's still many wonderful mentors out there for sure.
So how was it? You get signed. You're like, I'm gonna get this book. They're like, yeah, we're gonna publish this book. Was that like, I got signed? This is huge, and seeing how big it was getting, even before it was sent out. What was your reaction? How were you like, I can't believe this is happening, or like this isn't happening till it happens, or
The latter, for sure. With publishing, everything is so slow and nothing is certain. Like, it's really, you could have someone say, "Hey, I really liked this." And a lot of authors know that, like, sometimes you'll have an editor say, like, "Oh, I loved this." And then a week later, sorry, it didn't make it past this point of the process, or it didn't make it to acquisitions or things like that. It can be a very, it's a tough experience, no matter what. So I think I was very careful even after I knew that like my editor wanted to work with me, like the offer had come through, like things like that. Even after that, I was like, until I see this book, I'm not, I don't
yeah,
know if I believe that this is happening. Like, I had gone through edits, I had gone through my marketing and publicity calls. And even then I was like, I haven't seen the book yet. Like, it hasn't been printed yet. And I
right.
think it wasn't until I mean, I believed in it, but I think what really like set it in stone for me is when I got that package of finished copies. I was like, oh my gosh,
This is
they're gonna
real.
put these on shelves. Like, this is, people are gonna read this, even though many people had read it online and in the ebook form. But yeah, I think I was very untrusting because I was just so happy. I was just so thrilled. So yeah.
Because of the genre, because a lot of things it's like they try and fit things and plug them into holes, like it's this genre or it's this genre.
Hmm.
You've got kind of a contemporary story, but you've got like the D&D fantasy elements, and you've got the rom-com. How did they decide where that was going to fit in their, where they're going to stick it?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was something that was very important to me from the beginning. Is the book right now is probably like two-thirds contemporary and one-third fantasy adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always important to me to keep kind of that balance. I didn't want to cut the D&D. I thought someone might ask me like, "Hey, this needs to be like 3 chapters," or like just like very small snippets.
Yeah.
But it was very important to me that it was a part of the story, like intrinsic to the story, I would say. And so when I first talked to my editor, like I asked her that question, like, "Hey, what do you see like for this? Do you think that this is something you want to edit, or like what, how do you feel about it?" And she's like, "No, I think it's a really important part of the story. I think you couldn't tell this story without that balance. And I was like, okay, I know we found a home for this one. And
Yeah.
luckily, my publisher does fantasy and contemporary.
Yeah.
They do a lot of contemporary romance. They do some wonderful fantasy books as well. And so I think I really just found the perfect home that we're willing to kind of lean into both aspects of the book and kind of be able to celebrate both. So I'm very lucky that I landed where I did.
It's been so fun reading some of the comments, people that have written replies and reviews for advanced reader copies of people that are like, I'm not a romance person, but I play D&D. And I know we've mentioned this earlier, and being
Mhm.
like, I think I might be a romance fan and I didn't even realize it, or vice versa. People that are romance fans are like, yeah, I'm not a fan of D&D. Well, maybe I'll go play some D&D and try it out because
Mhm.
it sounds like it's actually kind of fun. Was
Mhm.
that something that you had hoped would happen, or was that just like afterwards, like, oh, I didn't even realize that this was a byproduct of what this book was going to do?
Yeah, I would say I did hope for it secretly. Like I was, even though I felt strongly about like keeping the book as it was, I
Yeah.
knew that having that balance was a risk. And it was probably the thing I was most worried about, that people were just going to be like, this is too much fantasy or too much contemporary. I wish you had picked a lane. So it was something that I was a little nervous about. And so my biggest hope was that people were like, yeah, I like both. I really enjoy both, or we're like pleasantly surprised. I think some of my favorite reader reactions are, how do I find a D&D group? Or I've never done this before, but the way that you wrote it or the way that you did it made me want to try and play. And that's probably my highest hope for the book, is that it just makes people want to go hang out with their friends and tell stories together, honestly. So,
How was it for you developing the characters? Each of the characters has like distinct roles, and you can kind of tell them apart. What was some of
mhm.
the work in trying to make sure that the characters remained both, useful to the story or integral to the story, but also like something that all the people reading it could just be like, oh, that character is cool, and that character is cool, and that character is cool.
Yeah, I interestingly enough, the very first scene I wrote of the book opens chapter 1 on like the contemporary storyline. And you've got your main character Sadie learning how to play, building her character for the D&D game. But the first scene I actually wrote of the book was the D&D characters. It was the first time that the D&D characters met. And I knew who the D&D group was, or like their characters, before I knew who the players were. And I think I had just come from such a fantasy background, it felt the most natural to me. So I knew for a fact that I wanted there to be a bard. I wanted the romantic interest to be a bard. It's very classic for me. It's an archetype that I love and really wanted to play with. And I think I picked cleric for the main character's character because I thought it was funny a little bit. Like a cleric and a bard is kind of a funny um pairing, and there's more depth that I added on the way. But I definitely started with those characters, and then the players kind of fell into place around them. I kind of knew that the archetypes I wanted to explore through their characters, like we want someone who's very punchy and brave and pushes the big red button, and we want like the flirty bard character, and the kind of initially nervous but brave cleric who is trying to keep everyone together and trying to keep everyone from not dying. And I was asking myself, like, what sort of people are playing these characters? And I knew for a fact I wanted it to be new players. Every character who's playing the game in the book is has never played D&D before,
Okay.
and I wanted it to be like that so that it was an easy entry point for readers who had never played D&D
Right.
before, to kind of give me a way to explain like the rules in a way that made sense. Yeah, and I think they just the characters and players kind of fell in from there. I kind of realized that our cleric, who is like brave and trying to keep everyone together, is played by our main character, who outside of the game is very nervous and feels very unlucky, and she's using this character as a way to explore aspects of her personality that she was kind of too shy or too
Yeah.
like embarrassed to play before. So yeah, I think starting from like those core kind of archetypes, and then going backwards is what really helped me to kind of flesh out who these people were, why are they playing these characters, and the DM fell in very easy for me. He was easy the last one, but the easiest one probably to write.
I love that. And I love the fact that like looking and seeing that deeply into the development of the characters and how that can translate to a person looking at D&D and how D&D works and go, "Oh, I can express myself in a different way through a D&D," and they can see that through the book because it's true.
Mhm.
Most people don't necessarily know that. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
Tell us about your transitions between the two, between the fantasy and the contemporary, and how you planned to do that and do it fairly seamlessly.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I think the short answer is that whenever I got bored writing one chapter, I would move over. So it wasn't necessarily a boredom thing, but I think it did rely a lot on like whenever there's a cliffhanger or whenever like there's a natural transition out of the story, like we go back to D&D. So a lot of times in the book, you'll have your main character Sadie who's recovering from burnout as well. She's trying to kind of figure out what her next steps are, and every time she starts to feel like a little less confident or a little like more anxious, it's D&D time. It's time to refresh. Let's have like our fun for the week. Let's get out of reality for a second and just have fun. So I really relied on that of kind of like, okay, when are things flagging in the real world where we need like that boost?
Yeah.
But I also did it in ways where I really wanted them to speak to each other. I wanted the things happening in game to kind of influence the things happening in real life as well. So, like, while Sadie is able to, through her character, be brave and flirtatious and outgoing, she also will kind of leave the table and ask herself, like, okay, maybe I will flirt with this this other player, maybe I will go on this date or do this thing. And she, after challenging herself in D&D, she's kind of like, okay, well, that was really fun and I enjoyed it in this context. So let me go try to do something new in my real life and just kind of explore and play in that way. So it was kind of wanting them to speak to each other and go back and forth. And also building the romantic tension was another way that I decided when to kind of switch as well.
Yeah. Where does your comedic timing and comedic storytelling come from?
I wish I knew. I don't always like consider myself that funny. But like sometimes I think I think the book is funny sometimes, and people have told me so, but I don't I'm just being silly. Like maybe I get
Silly
it
is
from
funny.
like
Silly is funny.
yeah, I'm just playing. I think I'm just like letting it happen as it comes. I think part of it probably comes from my dad and all of his dad jokes and stuff. But we've got like a Princess Bride reference in there, and that came from many, many years of loving that show. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you what was my question going to be? I got distracted. You mentioned Princess Bride, and I was like,
Sorry.
Princess Bride. I love Princess Bride.
Me too.
Do you find yourself writing kind of spur of the moment, or do you like have an outline? What is your process like?
I am somewhere in the middle. I call myself a plantser. Are you
Okay.
familiar with like
Pantsing.
plotting
Yeah.
and yeah. I plot a little bit and I pants a little bit. Usually when I'm writing like the first third of the book, I'm just like freestyling. I have no plan. I don't know where I'm going with it. I'm just getting to know the characters. I'm writing a lot of scenes that get cut eventually, but they're allowing me to like, let's put these two people in a coffee shop, or let's put them in like this situation and just get to know like who are they and like what's their dialogue like, what's their dynamic. So for the first 30,000, I'm usually just having fun. And then once I usually hit a wall at that, and I'm like, oh, I don't know where we go from here. So we've got to actually like plan this out. And then at that point, I write a pretty strict outline of like scene by scene, like where we're going from
Okay.
there. And I'll usually like go back and rewrite it at that point. I'll have realized at that point I don't want this to happen, or I need to change this element of their backstory or history. And then I'll kind of follow the outline from there. When I'm writing, even though like the writing itself can be chaotic, I am very routine oriented. I write during certain times of day. I like to really have like my setup and my vibes kind of all done. So I think I'd probably be more plotter than pantser, but I do think for me there has to be some room for play for me to even like start to get excited about the project.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that might change throughout the course of time? Like, if you get down to the point where you're like, okay, I'm 10 books in, now I've shifted. Because a lot of times I ask, seasoned writers, what has changed in the last 10, 20 years? And oftentimes their process changes. Do you see your process changing? Have you already seen it change?
yeah, that's a great question, and now I'm gonna go back and watch all of their advice because I'm fascinated by that. My process has definitely changed. I mean, when I wrote Roll for Romance, it was something I did for myself for fun whenever I was feeling like it. There was no deadline, there was
Right.
no nobody else was reading it. I was just like doing it whenever I enjoyed it. And then I am working on my second book right now, and there is a deadline, and that one's on contract. And I have readers who, for better or worse, have expectations for what
Right.
Lenora Woods writes. And not that anyone's pressuring me, but it exists, and it's part of being like, I guess, in the public eye. And so I definitely think things will change. I know I would really love to explore other genres. I'd probably love to write just holy fantasy at some point, and I am very open to things changing. I think writing styles really come with like lifestyles as well. I think as like my life changes and like if I move somewhere new or like things like that, I that the whole routine does need to change and kind of adapt. And being flexible with that has been a learning curve for me. I like for example with Roll for Romance, it was wholly driven by passion. I did not have a routine or anything like that. I just did it whenever I felt excited about it.
Yeah.
And then now that it's like a deadline, you can't you can't do that. You've got to like make a schedule and find what that feels like, and not the muse is not going to visit every time you sit down to write. And learning how to make space to invite it in and also write when it's not there was like a huge part of the process, and I think I've grown and learned a lot from that. So
Do you have a plan in place if you do switch and say do a fantasy novel? Do you think like you can just go through the same process and be like, I want to do a fantasy series, and your editor and your publisher and all that will be like, great.
I hope so. That's definitely the dream. My editor is a superstar. I love her. She's so keen and insightful, and I would love to do that. It's definitely not set in stone, but I do think if I were to do a fantasy, it would be a completely different process. Just because I guess Roll for Romance has showed me that there is more crossover in the readership than maybe I originally thought. But I do think fantasy, like when you're working with series and things like that, like it's just got to be a different process, and there's different rules. And I also think I cheated a little bit with Roll for Romance, because what I really did was write like half of a book about contemporary and half of a fantasy novel. So I've never really written like a full contemporary
Right.
or a full
Right.
fantasy novel. I've just kind of given little novellas that like talk back and forth to each other. So I think anytime I'm doing something brand new, I've just got to leave room for figuring out what I'm doing. I think it's so funny when people will ask me at like an event or online, they're like, "How do you write your books?" And I'm like, I'm just figuring it out. Like this is my first one. I
Yeah.
don't know if I could advise anyone. I'm doing my best. Is kind of the answer that I give a lot of times. So, and I don't know that that will change.
You mentioned another book, and I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about or how much you want to talk about it. Is it
Mhm.
similar in the fact that it's got the two genres? Is it set in the same world? Is it not set in the same world? Tell us a little bit of what you
Yeah.
can about the next upcoming books, or at least the plan for them.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's about as much as I can share at this point, is that it will be another D&D romance.
Okay.
You will have more of the two storylines kind of speaking to each other, and Yeah, I really hope I can share more
Yeah.
soon. I turned in the first draft right before this one came out, and so we'll see what happens, but I am really excited about it.
So people should go and pick this one up now, so they're done with it by the time the next one starts coming out, and people can keep
Yes,
an eye
that'd
on
be perfect.
it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for you. I'm so glad that this book came out. It's so much fun, and all of the reviews I've read have been great, and all of the people I know that I've talked to about it, they're like, whether they're one side of the fence or the other, they're like, wait, there's a book that crosses over. I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, that's super cool. So I look forward to hearing more. I look forward to friends and family and our audience checking out your book. It's going to be great. So I'm very excited for you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy. It's been incredible to watch that all, and I'm just very happy to have it out.
So you have some upcoming events. You're going to be at the Books People in Austin, Texas tomorrow, which if you're listening to the podcast version of this, it'll be today. It'll be July 22nd. And so
Mhm.
people can come there and hang out and meet with you, and you maybe get book signs and get a copy of the book,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm very excited for that one. Because I used to work there, and so to be there as an author is like surreal. It's
That's going
very
to be super
cool.
cool.
Yeah, I can't wait.
And I'm kind of curious if there are people that still work there that you know that are like, hey, wait a second, this is super awesome.
The guy who DM'd my very first game, I think he still works there. I don't know if he'll be there tomorrow, but hope you are. I'll say hello if you
That's
are. So
awesome.
yeah.
You're also going to be at the Boston Fan Expo in August, and that's 8th through the
Yes.
10th, I believe, according to their website.
It is, yes. I will be on a romance panel on the 10th on Sunday. So we're still letting out some more details that you can find on their website, but being able to go to a Comic-Con is a dream come true for me. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
really
be on a
excited
panel.
for
That's
that.
going to be super cool.
Yes. Yeah,
You'll
I
do
can't
great. You'll do
wait.
great.
Thanks.
Of course, you're going to be at SideQuest Books also in Boston on August
Mhm.
19th. And that's another
Yes.
like meet and greet, sign books and stuff.
This one's a little different.
Okay.
SideQuest is actually they're doing a book club. So they're
Oh,
inviting people to read the book ahead of time, and then they'll give the book club time to talk privately and discuss and say whatever they want without me hearing. And then I will come in the latter half and do a little bit more of a discussion and signing portion. So it's a little more dynamic, but I'm really excited for that one.
that should be a
SideQuest
lot of
is
fun. You'll get
so cool.
a lot of good feedback too.
Yeah, it's crazy talking to people who've like read the book. Like I'm like, "Oh, you like that one part?" And so I think we'll have a lot of fun there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm.
People can find you at lenorawoods.com.
Yep,
And you're
correct.
also on
That's it.
Instagram. Lenora Woods Writes is your handle on Instagram.
Yes, that's
So
me.
people
Yep.
can
Mhm.
go and give a follow and all that kind of stuff. Go and check out Lenora Woods. Check out the book. Of course, anybody who's watching the live stream, stick around, ask your questions, throw them in chat. We'll get to some of those questions in the post podcast Q&A session. Of course, I want to make sure to let you guys know some of the things we've got coming up. Of course, we've got writer, content designer, and podcast host Trevor Bettis is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about podcasting, D&D, his time on the Idle Champions video game, and so much more. That's going to be live August 4th. That podcast will be available on the 5th. Of course, we're going to have a very special episode. We're going to be doing it live on August 8th, not our normal Monday. It'll be live August 8th. We're going to be having D&D legend Jeff Grubb. He's written books, written games, all of the things. He's done everything in the industry. He's going to be on the show for our August 18th podcast release, and that's going to be live August 8th. Of course, still to come, we're going to be having author Rosemary Jones, D&D creator Stephen Shend, so many more. So make sure to join us. Click all those buttons. Of course, follow us at our website, epicrealmsmedia.com. For Lenora Woods, I am Nick, and I want to thank you all for listening to Epic Realms.
Thank you so much.